Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Banteay, Meanchey in Cambodia. This is quite an interesting little region of Cambodia here. It has a couple of interesting geography facts, not a lot, but enough to keep it interesting. I'll just quickly go over the sad reason about why there's not a lot of geography features, and that is because most of this area here, which is mostly fields and farmlands, is heavily covered in landmines. So a lot of it isn't safe to be in, obviously. So there's not a lot of pictures I'm going to show you on Google Earth. Not a lot of places to talk about, unfortunately. I looked up online also what's the most landmined country on Earth. And I think it was Laos, but because of recent events, it's now Ukraine. Which, how sad is that? Just a sad fact, not a fun fact. A depressing fact for you that that's the most landmined country in the world. But I was wondering if it was Cambodia or Laos. Sadly, nowadays it's not. But it's not a very safe reason to, or not a very safe place to explore because of that reason. But the places that we do have, that we can talk about and you can visit, are extremely interesting. Starting with probably the most surface level one is this town here called Poi Phet. Poi Phet is located directly on the border with Thailand. You can see Thailand makes up this entire border here. There's a river right here. On one side is Thailand, the other side is Cambodia and the town of Poi Phet. And this city is very funny. I'm going to show it to you on Google Earth, of course. But I just relocated from Reno, Nevada to Walla Walla, Washington. And this place looks so much like Reno. It gave me like flashbacks to living in Reno, Nevada. Apparently, gambling is illegal in Thailand, but not in Cambodia. So right when you cross the border, you're just inundated with a whole strip of casino resorts. And it looks and feels exactly like Reno, because Reno's on the border of California and Nevada. In California, gambling is illegal unless you're a Native American tribe with a permit. In Nevada, it's very legal. So once you cross over that border, California to Nevada, it's just casinos. So it made me wonder how many towns in this world are like that, because I know South Lake Tahoe is also like that. Once you cross from California to Nevada, in South Lake Tahoe, it's just casinos everywhere. How many towns are like that? Because now I know of 3, right? Reno, South Lake Tahoe, and Poi Phet. There's got to be more. Let me know if you can think of any more in the comments, because it's pretty interesting how it goes from normal town to just lights and excitement and all those things that casino resorts have. It's very funny. That's the interesting fact about Poi Phet. It's where everyone from Thailand comes to go gambling legally. The capital city is Sisophon, the most populous city in the region, and to be honest, I didn't find too many interesting facts about it, but I'm just noting that for you. The real, actual interesting place is called Banteay. It's located about up here or so. If you asked any geography nerd, say one fact about Cambodia, they're going to say Angkor Wat, which is literally just a hop, skip, and a jump away over here near Siem Reap. Angkor Wat was at one time the largest, I believe it was the largest city in the world, and it was definitely the largest religious structure in the world. It just dwarfs the Vatican completely. But there were many other structures that were built very similarly to Angkor Wat throughout Cambodia. The sad thing is that many of them have been swallowed up by the jungle. They've decayed, they've fallen apart for a multitude of reasons. Banteay used to be one of those. The people that live in the town nearby have been diligently trying to save it, essentially, trying to rebuild what they can, trying to preserve it, and it's really only been recognized internationally in the past 10, 20 years or so. And in the last couple of years, they've set it up so that tourists can actually come and safely observe it. A lot of it is still damaged, a lot of it is still swallowed up. But some of the things that they have found and some of the things that they've preserved and rebuilt are absolutely stunning and look like they could have come straight out of Angkor Wat. So I believe that's where we'll start with the history. It's during that time, because that was during the reign of the Khmer Empire. Khmer, which is not how it's pronounced in Cambodia, by the way. That's how it's pronounced in English. I think it's Khmer in Cambodia. The Khmer Empire had its heart here in Siem Reap at Angkor Wat for like the Golden Age. I believe it was the reign before Angkor Wat was built would have been the reign of King Jayavarman II. Either just before, maybe a couple hundred years before Angkor Wat or so, I think. He reigned from 1180 to 1220, that's CE. And he had Banteay constructed in memory of his son who had passed away. And it's very reminiscent to Angkor Wat, very similar layout, I suppose. You have your big temple or the big palace. You have a temple surrounded by a huge moat and little temples surrounding it in all directions. It's on a smaller scale than Angkor Wat, of course, but it's still fantastic. The Khmer Empire would grow and shrink throughout history. So would the kingdom of Ayutthaya, which is very closely associated with Thailand, that would eventually become known as Siam. And Siam would have conquered this region in 1795, but actually before that, I got a little ahead. The French had come in and started taking over. We're going to talk about Indonesia next. That was all the Dutch. The British were coming in along the coast, so the French went more inland to this whole area over here, what's known as Indochina. At the time was French Indochina, so the French had conquered it in the 18th century, late 18th century. Siam came in 1795. They traded it with the French in 1907 for other land that's now part of Thailand, I believe. They re-annexed it in 1941 during their World War II era. That's a terrible way to put it. Thailand sided with Japan during World War II, so they had a bit of a Japanese mindset and they started conquering, just like Japan was doing. To put it in the most bare bones way possible, let's put it that way. The French regained control in 1946 after the war, which of course no one liked except the French. They fought hard to keep Indochina, especially Vietnam, to be honest, but they lost and Cambodia became independent in 1953. Now, it was not an easy go for it in Cambodia after that, and that's putting it very lightly. This is where we're actually going to learn why this region is called Banteay Meanchey, which means the Fortress of Victory, or I saw another translation that called it the Citadel of the Army. Very epic names. That is because of a certain incident, but I have to describe why that incident took place. The government of Cambodia was taken over by a man named Pol Pot, one of the most evil people in history, to put it very lightly. The atrocities he committed were numerous, and just horrifying, to be honest. But that's not relaxing, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to this region too much. Just keep that in mind. Essentially, at the root of his plan was called Year Zero, where he decided to eliminate anything that was modern out of Cambodia, period. Even things like basic housing, plumbing, like anything that wasn't from the Year Zero. So going back to farming times, which means he emptied out the capital city, Phnom Penh, forced everyone to live in the villages. And of course, if anyone disagreed with him, they met a very dark end, one way or another. Let's leave it at that. He renamed the country Kampuchea, so at this time it was not Cambodia, it was Kampuchea. A lot happened in this corner of the world during the 1960s and 1970s, also putting it lightly. Not just in what's now Kampuchea, but also in Vietnam. Vietnam was taken over by a communist government led by Ho Chi Minh. And a long war ensued to try to stop that, and the northern Vietnamese, the communists, were victorious, and Vietnam became a communist country. They had just come off this long, aggravating, destructive war that killed millions and destroyed countless acres of beautiful forest in Vietnam. And they were very much like an angry hornet at this point. So when the Kampuchean army started to cross over the border here and aggravate Vietnam, Vietnam was not having it, and oh boy, did they go all in on Kampuchea excessively. So in 1984, the summer of 1984, which would have been in the northern hemisphere, the winter months, right? So this was October, November, December, January. The Vietnamese army launched a campaign through Thailand to enter this region to attack. And essentially, victoriously fought off the army, and they helped liberate the areas here. And it was a real turning point to the end of the entire Pol Pot regime, to be honest. Once Vietnam got involved and they started going hard, like excessively hard against Kampuchea, the country crumbled, and Vietnam controlled the country for 10 years. And it all really started over here in this area. So that's why it has that name, the Fortress of Victory. I like it. That's a cool name. And of course, Cambodia is very, compared to before, very stable. Let's put it that way. Is it the most stable? No, but far, far better. And there's lots of monuments all around, especially in Phnom Penh, to the events during that time. And that is why this area is so heavily landmined, because of that conflict. And I believe that's the end of the history of this area here. Banteay, Meanchey. Which I hope is how it's correctly pronounced. I looked up a pronunciation guide. I practiced. I believe that's how it's pronounced in Khmer. I'm doing my best. If anyone speaks Khmer or knows enough Khmer, let me know in the comments how well I'm doing or how terrible I'm doing. Let me know. But let's head over to Google Earth. Like I said, there isn't much to see, but what there is to see, I gotta show you. I almost called it Reno, Poi Pet, and I'll show you a slideshow of the capital city, and then we'll finish off playing all over Banteay Chumor. So let's get to it. Here we are in Banteay, Meanchey province, and we're gonna start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. It's okay if you don't know where Cambodia is, or maybe you've never even heard of Cambodia. Perfectly fine. I'm glad you're here. Today you're going to learn. So this area is Southeast Asia, because it's literally southeast in the continent of Asia. This area here is historically known as Indochina, which is a weird name because it's not part of India, it's not part of China, but both countries have greatly influenced the culture here, right? And let's see, Thailand's right there. You see Laos, Vietnam. They have a little coastline here on the Gulf of Thailand. The capital city is Phnom Penh right there. But we are way up here in the corner on the border with Thailand. So let's start at that border at Poi Phet. You can see how the city flows over the border. And we head right over to that main area, and you can see it's supposed to be popping up. Hello? Of course, anytime I film, it never goes right. going perfectly well when the camera's not on. There we go. You see all these little purple dice here? They're all casinos. Here's Thailand, here's Cambodia, and you have a little strip just like in Las Vegas. So I looked through all the casinos, being an expert living in a casino city for a year and a half. I think my favorite one's probably the Star Vegas casino, just based on these little slideshow pictures. And it's really funny because a lot of these look like casinos in Reno. Like this could have been taken in Reno, this picture here. I guess you could also say the same about Vegas or Macau or any other big gambling city, but pretty funny. All the slot machines. A big complex of buildings here at these big resorts. Of course, you have all the neon. Can't have a casino without all the neon. Busy strip there, busy street. Not Starbucks, of course, it's Starbed Coffee's right there. Almost the same logo, not quite. It's a tree instead of a siren. It's not Starbucks, it's Starbed. Just perfect because it's the Star Vegas casino. Very funny. Oh, some yummy food. Man, I did a video about the Philippines last week. Next, we're doing a video about Indonesia, and I've just been craving lumpia, man. Craving it, so I have to go find it some here in Walla Walla. I think I saw a Thai restaurant downtown. Gotta go get some lumpia. I've been craving, I guess, Asian food, I suppose. Asian food. That's so fake. But that chicken looked pretty good. Here's a little buffet, another icon you must have in these fancy casinos. It's fancy buffets. Lots of fancy food. You you pay a flat fee and you just get as much food as you want. It's the best. Ooh, that room's not doing too well. They must be under renovation. You don't want to stay there. But you can see here's the Emerald Poi Pet Casino. We've got, that one just says casino. The name didn't get tagged on there. You can get some hot pot there. Oh, that sounds good too. Holy moly. There's a couple of others down here. Diamond City Casino Hotel. Like it. There's a couple more over here, but the Sand Palace Casino, Tropicana, the Crown Casino. They're all over the place. All the slideshows are pretty much the same, or else I'd show you. They all look like casinos. It's so funny though. Just looking at all the pictures just reminded me so much of Reno. It's pretty much the same concept of a border casino city. Let's look at, it's vanished. Let me put the borders back up. Banteay, Meanchey. Dun, dun, dun. There we go, Sisofon. Which apparently it's named that because I guess it was very so fun. But when Siam, now Thailand, was in control, they pronounced it Sisofon and the name stuck. So it's still officially called that today because that's what the Thais called it. And that's just the name that it has in English, even though that's not what they call it in Khmer, in Cambodia. Interesting, isn't it? The little sites to see around town don't have great pictures. That's why I'm just showing you the generic slideshow of places you can see around the city. Big main square, this cool French Indochine architecture. Lots of palm trees too. Cool statue. Lots of statues. It looks like Garuda, right? Or a Garuda, I should say. Big statue there as well in this big roundabout downtown. But let's get to what we're all eager to see. As soon as I find it, I need to put the borders back up so I don't wander too far away. Oh, I wasn't even close. It's up here. Banteay. Whoops. Get in there. So here you can see the village around it. Here would be the main palace complex. And the big temple here, very much like Angkor Wat. And then when you zoom in, it'll pop up as all of the temples surrounding it. Over here, or at least what's left of them, because they've been crumbled up, lost to time. So let's start here. And look how much has been saved, at least. You can still see the shape of everything, all the roads coming in. Isn't that fascinating? So you can go visit this today. It's still very safe. You can see just how much is all crumbled up from just wear and tear. You can see the trees growing through all of it. This is the real star of the show. This frieze, I guess. Beautiful carvings. And you can see these are all bricks, right? But you stack them together to get this magnificent picture here. Isn't that something? That's so beautiful. To think that all the details have been preserved for so long, since the year 1200 probably. And all these trees are fascinating because they kind of look like candles melting, like wax melting over these old ruins. See an old Naga there. Looks like this one didn't survive. Heading out to the moat, or maybe an entryway. Beautiful columns here, and look, you can see how much has fallen apart. But there are people trying to pick up all the pieces and trying to put some back together what they can. Good little Buddha there. And a neat one up there too. So it's a little mini Angkor Wat. Not in nearly as good of a condition as the real Angkor Wat. But I guess it's like budget Angkor Wat. Lots of signage around for tourists who want to come see. This slideshow's really good too. The one that's just tagged here at the front of the visitor center. You can see that beautiful carving again. Look at this, you can see the faces there. Piling up what they can. A little shop nearby. Of course, now that it's open to tourists, there's all kinds of trinket shops and food stalls lining up this outside area here so that tourists can eat and shop and to explore the ruins. So there's some nugget. And these gorgeous trees. It's like even though they're destroying this beautiful temple complex, they're still really pretty trees. It's so interesting how they managed to survive and grow like that. See, how do they do this? Did they put the blocks together and then carve? Or did they carve on the blocks and then piece it together like a puzzle? I don't know. Either way, it's really remarkable. I guess they would have to do it on each stone and then place it. I suppose. That's how I'd do it. A big pile of rubble there. Selling little wares out there. So over here, this is the actual temple. The Meban Temple. There's the pier because this would have been all one huge moat. The temple would have been right here. Looks like the main area. Of course, everything's tagged everywhere. See, here's the big pier that they built because this was all water once upon a time. Looks like it's all overgrown now, probably very wet still. Look at these snaky trees. They look alive. Beautiful. And you can see, oh, here we go. Here's a nice wet day. It's still very watery. Sometimes not. Maybe in some areas it is, in some areas it isn't. It's hard to tell from up above. See, look, there's a little boat launch, it looks like. Very, very cool. Look at these little, I guess, lions or dogs. I'm not sure. But you see a lot of those in Khmer art. All the lilies. Pretty neat, isn't it? So let's find a couple more temples to play at. I guess you could pray at them, but I'm sure no one's done that for a long time. So a lot of the little temples have not held up nearly as well, and they're quite all crumpled up. can still see where they once were, and of course the people who've lived here for over 1,000 years have always known that that's where the temples were and have preserved it. Which isn't that wonderful? I'm sure when the French controlled this area, they had no interest in this kind of thing. But the people here always did. Let's see how much has been swallowed up. Let's see this one. And maybe we'll look at one more after this. Oh, this one's been really piled high. You can see the face right there, Buddha. It's so neat. A bunch of tourists here enjoying the sights around town. And this is a tentative UNESCO site. Hopefully someday it'll become a full-blown UNESCO site. Fingers crossed for next year. This year they only announced like 20 new sites. Usually do around 40. So fingers crossed for next year, because this place could really use some help from UNESCO and the UN, because they provide funds to help repair and restore and protect all these sites. So once it becomes a full-blown site, we know that what we have will last forever, within reason, of course. And look at the chakra right there, right? Wheel. And that maybe even some more can be restored and build up more of a tourist interest, so that more money comes into this area, and so more can be done to protect it. Let's look at this very far one in the east, or west, I mean, before we head down. This one's got a big hole in it, like a little cave you crawl into, I suppose. How gorgeous, little Buddhas. But that's going to be the end of this video for tonight. So thank you so much for watching. If you learned something cool, if you've never heard of Banteay, leave this video a thumbs up. And let me know what you thought down in the comments. If anyone's planning to go to Cambodia and Angkor Wat, let me know if you've rescheduled so that you can come see Banteay. Fit that into your itinerary. And next in the series, like I said, we're heading down to Indonesia again. And this area we're going to is so neat, because like when I think Indonesia, I think beautiful islands, jungle, and like big sprawling Jakarta, right? This region has all three. We're going to look at beautiful islands, a fantastic, gorgeous national park, which is a UNESCO site, and the suburbs of Jakarta. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good